Welcome to Behind the Campaign, the podcast where marketers pull back the curtain on some of their best marketing campaigns. I'm joined today by Laurren Darr, driver and marketing management at Zachary Tinkle Racing. Welcome, Laurren.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So for our listeners and viewers who don't know much about Zachary and Zachary Tinkle Racing, tell us a little bit about you guys.
So Zachary is a race car driver, development driver in NASCAR. And for those that don't know, there are 4 tiers. It's basically ARCA, Trucks, Xfinity, and Cup, the 4 tiers in the development rungs of NASCAR. He has been in ARCA for 3.5 years now, racing 3 years for Fast Track Racing. Andy Hillenberg, who is born in Indiana, so Hoosier, and Zachary is from Speedway, Indiana. And this year he was 3rd in the ARCA Menards East Championship and just picked up his trophy in Charlotte. Has been racing since he was 10, 11 years old, started out in a go-kart, went to mini cups, full-size late model cars, was catapulted into ARCA a few years ago in 2021, which is the reason why he started the foundation. And the foundation that we'll talk about with the campaign was with Scouting America. It was actually through the Zachary Tinkle Foundation, which was founded in 2021, 2022.
So we're talking about the collaboration that you did with Scouting America, and that was with, like you said, the Zachary Tinkle Foundation. So tell us a little bit about the collaboration. How did it come about? Did you guys approach Scouting America? Did they approach you? How did this all happen?
Yeah, so I was going to a marketing conference a year and a half-ish ago and knew that the Scouting America folks would be there and sent a message to Nicole at Scouting America and said, hey, fun fact, Zachary Tinkle was a Webelos super achiever in Scouts, and kind of left it at that. And she said, oh my goodness, we have to get together. So we got together before, really just to chit chat and see if there was any synergy whatsoever. And just over a couple glasses of water, and she also had someone else there from Scouting America. We were just talking about Scouts. They were in the midst of getting ready to launch their rebrand for Scouting America. And I said, well, don't quote me on this, but I also think that Zachary's team owner, Andy Hillenberg, is a Pinewood Derby winner. So we talked about Pinewood Derby, and obviously, those were probably the first cars that Zachary raced. He didn't win, but he did, race the Pinewood Derby, and just started talking about how important that was for people's development, teaching sportsmanship and those types of things. And how sometimes you have that awkward lull in a conversation where it's like, okay, what does anybody else have to say? Thought just came to me, and I said, hey, do you think that a Cub Scout would ever be interested in having their Pinewood Derby car design racked on a race car? And all of a sudden it was like the light bulbs went all off in all of our faces, and they said, yes, of course they would. Who wouldn't want that? So we just started talking about having this national contest as a promotion, and it dovetailed with them launching their rebrand from Boy Scouts of America to Scouting America. And that's how it actually came about.
Yeah, and if you've ever been in scouting, I was in Girl Scouts, but, I have friends who have been in various forms of scouting. Everyone knows that Pinewood Derby is, like, iconic, right? And so I think the collaboration makes a lot of sense. So tell us a little bit about what was involved in this campaign.
So when we started talking about the contest, we had to get to work right away because initially I thought we would be talking about doing it in 2025 when the Pinewood Derby season would start. And what happened was they went to their executive team, told them, as a wrap up from them going to the conference, some of the conversations that they had. And all of a sudden, even though the Pinewood Derby season was just beginning, they said, we want to do this now. Can we get this done and launch end of 2024 and have the race be in 2025. So we really scurried and made this work. They had the contest hosted on the back end on their website. So scouts would upload pictures of their Pinewood Derby cars. And on the back end, they went through all of the Pinewood Derby designs, and some of them, they violated copyright or something like that. So obviously we couldn't pick those. And Zachary was given a number of ones to look at. I think it was around 30. And it was a painful process for him because he loved all of the designs. to finally just pick one. Um, and so he picked the design, and what was involved was the winner. They got to come to Rockingham Speedway. We took the Pinewood Derby design and had our graphic designer put it on the car. We put the winner's name on the name rail. They had tickets to be in the pits at the race with family, up to 4 people, and we paid for their travel to get to Rockingham, which is in North Carolina for people that don't know. The winner actually was from Oklahoma. And so all of that was what the winner actually received. And then we also did a couple surprises. We had team shirts made with Scouting America and had those for the family. And also, something that's popular in motorsports anyway is what they call hero cards. So those are the cards that drivers give out when they do autograph sessions and those kinds of things. So we took the picture of James with his Pinewood Derby car and Zachary and the design of the car with James's design on it, and I made a hero card out of it, and so I surprised him with those, and also had him autograph some so that he could feel like what it was like to be a race car driver. Put him in the car. I mean, he was very, very shy at first, when we wanted to take pictures and stuff, obviously. But when one of the guys on the team picked him up and put him in the car, he was real shy about saying, "Yeah, I'd like to sit in the car." And when Zach was the crew member's name, said, "Well, would you like me to start it up?" All of a sudden, he lit up. And he started up the car, revved it, and all of a sudden, everybody was best friends. That's what the winner got out of it, but obviously we did promotion along the way. Scouting America, they were on the national streaming broadcast, of course, leading up to this and through the contest. Zachary did some streaming lives, and they promoted on their social media. We promoted on ours and things like that. The goal was really part of the rebrand for Scouting America, and also to encourage STEM and artist programs, and create to show a meaningful family experience through scouting and highlighting scouting values that obviously Zachary had. We even did a story that was posted on the NASCAR ARCA site that talked about Andy and Zachary and their experience with scouting as part of the promotion for it. So that's kind of how it was a collaboration and a partnership between the two.
So you mentioned that the landing page was hosted on Scouting America's site. So how are those? Obviously, this is a collaboration between the two organizations. How did you kind of decide who was going to do what as far as promotion and marketing activities?
It truly was a collaboration of, so I would do a design for, say, the page, the back page of Scouting Magazine, and then they would say, okay, we need to tweak it, and our legal department has been involved, and then we would go back and forth on that. It really was a matter of ahead of time in the agreement, it was mapped out. These are the components that they are going to do, which was mainly social media and marketing in their magazine and those live streams. And then we mapped out what it was that we were doing on our end so that it was considered of equal value. And really, it was really kind of easy for us to hash that out just because we all had the same goal in mind. When it came to hosting on the back end, that was really kind of an easy call because they are dealing with underage humans, minors, and they already had things in place where people could click a button and agree to something and those types of things. They did not want us to necessarily have the information of the scout without some explicit permissions. So we had no issue at all with them saying, hey, we'll host that on our site. They had done something similar with another company before, so they had the back end system built from contests before. So we felt very comfortable with saying, okay, that's great if you want to host it. To be very frank, Scouting America is a bigger organization than the Zachary Tinkle Foundation. The staff and the bandwidth to handle that. So I figured if we handled the race side of things on our end, then we would be able to hold up our end of the bargain.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't think about when you are dealing with marketing and children, is the fact that there is a whole extra level of security and privacy concerns that you need to think about. With my students at Butler University, this is something that we talk about throughout class, is all of these different aspects of marketing that the general public don't really think about. But as marketers, we need to have these things, at top of mind whatever program we're working with. So, was this the first collaboration of this kind that you did?
Of this kind, yes. The Zachary Tinkle Foundation mainly supports pet rescue. That's how it started out in 2021. Zachary, I don't think I told you, but in 2021, his dad had a stroke. And it was a very bad diagnosis in the brain where you never want to have a stroke. So the expectation was that he would be in a wheelchair and unable to speak the rest of his life. And miraculously, he ended up months later being able to go back to work. But what happened as a result of that, the family had the late model team and had to shut that down because when it's family supported, you have no idea if there is going to be any income. So that's how the Zachary Tinkle Foundation was started. Zachary, at the end of that year, after did a GoFundMe to keep him in a race car. He was running for a championship in late models at the time, but simultaneously, Wayne Peterson called and said, "Hey, I met Zachary at Charlotte Motor Speedway earlier this year, and he impressed me. And I found out he's a really good race car driver. I heard about his situation, and I need a driver in a car in 2 weeks." And so there was a scramble to get him in the NASCAR ARCA car. I'm sure you can imagine the amount of paperwork to just be a NASCAR driver.
Yes.
And get all of that done. And so that he made a decision that was one of the ultimate goals, was to start in the NASCAR tiers. And so it was kind of catapulted, and that's how the foundation started, because he was looking out the door and said, "This is some of the worst year in many ways, and also the best year of my life in other ways, because I found out there were people that I didn't even know who knew me that were supporting me on the GoFundMe account and things like that." So he wanted to start the foundation, and he had a mini cup trailer and said, "Can we take the trailer around 2 different places where I race, fill it up, and take it to rescues?" So that's how it started out. And then he also does support kids' causes. And so this was the first time that we really went all in on a cause that was more related to children and versus pets, and really our first big national campaign.
So your goals were to kind of get, obviously, exposure for Zachary Tinkle Racing, but also to have this collaboration with a large organization that has somewhat of a similar kind of background, I would say, with you've got Zachary and Andy, who are both scouts. What were some of your other goals around this collaboration?
Well, obviously, with Scouting America, a big goal of theirs was to show the rebrand to Scouting America versus it being the Boy Scouts of America, because with that came the ability for anyone to become a scout, not just boys. And so that was a big deal. And it was, I guess, unfortunately, politically, there was a little bit of issue there with that. And so we knew that we would have to deal with that with some of the social media comments and such. But the value set that Scouting America has matched Zachary's. So really that was the goal. We also did things like a coloring book page, so that they could design their race car and those types of things to encourage STEM development,
Yeah.
encourage, because design is a part of racing, and aerodynamics obviously is a huge part of racing. There are a lot of things that we talked about doing from a STEM perspective, but it's more of a long-term thing if we were to go down the path of doing those, because we were on such a time crunch to get that done. So really the branding was the biggest component. And with it being on a national live stream, that was accomplished. With Zachary's finishes, he did get TV time and other interviews. So that was helpful in the organic media that was a part of the campaign. But really the STEM, showing scouting values, and the rebrand, and obviously exposure for Zachary, those were the upper level goals.
So would you say you accomplished all of those goals through this collaboration?
I do feel like we did, with the number of impressions that were received, hundreds of thousands of impressions. I wouldn't be surprised if we really did a deep dive into it, it wasn't close to 1 million impressions easily, because a lot of those did not necessarily include the magazine and those types of things. And then the average retail value that was provided to Scouting America through the Zachary Tinkle Foundation, that was definitely a big part of it. Another, I guess, happy accident as a result is something upcoming even yet this week, is the Scouting America car will be in the NASCAR 25 game, because in the midst of doing this campaign, we were in the midst of the paperwork and negotiations with getting Zachary into the NASCAR 25 game. And he was in there with his Racing for Rescues car, but then they have a download pack that's coming in December. So even though the campaign is technically over, there are still some residual effects that are happening. So I think we did accomplish the goals and even surpass them.
Sounds like there were a lot of moving parts. I mean, you had things digitally, right? With your social media and the website and all of that. You had TV, you had broadcast, you had print in various different forms. How did you manage to kind of keep that all straight? Especially when you're working with another organization as well.
Yeah, so division of responsibilities and kind of having those clear cut lines, having a social media calendar and definitely letting each other know, okay, here's the day that we're going to post. And so on Zachary's calendar, we have a notation. This is the day we're going to repost whatever Scouting America puts out. And we don't want anything out there on that day. Really, communication is the key to anything, right? And on the back end for us, it was a matter of you get to us the material, the photos of all the Pinewood Derby cars, give us X number of days. He really only had a couple of days to go through all of the photos, but we knew ahead of time because of the schedule, this was going to be crunch time and the decision had to be made. And then I had alerted our graphic designer ahead of time. As soon as we press go on which one is the winner, I need you to get the design done for the car. So things that were really race related on the back end, we handled on our side, whether it was designing team shirts or the race car or things like that. Things that we were normally handling, we handled those on our end. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just yeah, it does because it's a lot for, a you're not a multi-billion dollar corporation,
Oh,
right? That has a lot of staff or a lot of people. So it can be a lot. And like I said, working with another organization, I'm sure you don't use the same systems, the same technology. So, having to go kind of off of your regular systems and communicate over email or Teams or however you communicate it, that can, it can have a big effect on the the outcome of the campaign.
yeah, yeah. And our communication was primarily through email because there were probably at times up to 6 or 7 people on their end that were involved. And on our end, it was mainly me. And we also this past year had a social media intern. And I've learned something new, Airtable, because we have our social media calendar in there.
Yeah.
So that was really, really helpful to have that in place and have that support. I'd never had an intern before and I thought, why in the world hadn't have I not done this before? It's great experience for him and it was really helpful for us, especially in a situation like this. And it really is dealing with a very matrixed organization when you're dealing with a national brand. Because so for example, we had the conversation about doing diecast cars and it could still continue as a conversation, but the way you have to do it, you have a minimum order quantity through NASCAR that has to be guaranteed, and Scouting America have stores that they could sell it across in the United States. Well, in order to do this, you have the marketing department, you have the retail department, you have the merchandise department, you have the licensing folks involved, and partnership also. So you have at least 5 different departments to try and deal with to get things done. So quite frankly, some things you just have to say, okay, we're not going to be able to do that because we have to have so much collaboration that it's just not going to get done. And you have to focus on, okay, how can we do this and do it well as a test case and then expand it later.
I'm curious, obviously, we're recording this in the middle of December in Indiana, and there's snow on the ground, and Zachary's not racing here, obviously. But does he race year round, and how does that translate to your role in marketing? I mean, is your marketing cyclical, I guess is what I'm asking.
Obviously, there are times when you're in season that there is more to it, and people say, "Oh, what are you going to do in the off season?" And frankly, I feel like, well, there isn't really an off season, and many teams are busier during the off season because at least in the shop they're taking down chassis and sandblasting them and putting putting cars back together after they've taken them apart. And for me, it's a lot of trying to seek sponsorship and partnership in all year round, but especially in the quote unquote off season. But to give an idea, this year, Zachary was selected for the Road to Daytona program, and that was in January. So in November of the previous year, in 2024, we had the NASCAR banquet, then you have the holidays, and then January, we're back in Daytona.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah,
he's not
Southern United States is
yeah.
still warm for the most part. They may have a little bit of cold, but we're freezing here in Indiana. And I know that is not good for the tires.
Yeah, so it feels like the racing is year round, even though with us being in Indiana and it being cold, it really is year round. There are drivers that go to Australia and race when it's cold here. You could go out to California. Down in Florida, they just had the Snowball Derby this past weekend, which is a big late model race. So even though we're cold and we can't even think about going outside, much less racing, it really is a year round thing.
Yeah, for sure. Anything big that you wanna share with our listeners that's coming up? Anything we should be on the lookout for?
Just that the NASCAR 25 game has come out. If anybody's a fan of video games and want to go race and be in a Zachary Tinkle car, there'll be the Racing for Rescues car and the Scouting America car obviously in there. No big announcements as of right now for the 2026 season. We're still working on a couple things and really hoping that a couple really neat things might come through. So we're still working on that.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was great to hear about this collaboration. I always am fascinated when collaborations happen in the marketing space because some of them can be unusual, but I think this one was a really good fit, and I hope to see more of it in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I've appreciated it.